Grace and peace, grand rising. Happy moon day. It is Monday. Let me just hide that. So, okay. Let's see here now. Okay. So today is Mindful Monday. I didn't think I was going to come on and do it, but there's a topic that I wanted to discuss besides what's been going on in media right now as far as the shooting that happened in Buffalo, New York. That's upstate. That's about 2 hours away from New York City. So I have my thoughts on that, but I won't be discussing that today. Today, I want to talk about, there's an article in the New York Post that, oh, my lotus is here. Yay, my lotus bomb, salute. There's an article in the New York Post that was dated May 7th. Also, I was going to come on a little later, but I was able to get here early, so we can chop this up and get this out the way. I'm also going to bring the floor open to anybody that wants to discuss this particular subject in regards to, I will read it. Let's see, what is the article's title? Okay, so it's coming out of the New York Post, dated the 7th of May. This is what it looks like. And it's written by Sandy Wright. Now, I'm not sure what her background is as far as ethnicity, but she wrote an article that says, Millennial men want 1950s housewives after they have kids. So that's coming out of the New York Post. I also got another article from the Chicago News. Very happy Mondays in the building. Salute. So I got an article from Chicago News EDU, the University of Chicago, to kind of give us a balance of how does that look for millennials, which is 32 maybe to 30, so 25, I believe, to 32. I'm not sure of the millennial, the years of the millennials. I'll go on to look it up really quickly. But anyway, today is Mindful Monday. I wanted to discuss this topic because I went on to Instagram and had this conversation. It is a beautiful day to be alive. Every day we count our blessings. There was this article particularly was on a one of a pages that I follow on Instagram that is a for better, for lack of words, it's a Black owned page, not particularly owned because we know who owns all the social media, but this particular headline came up, and a lot of it was biased because a lot of the men that were posting were saying that they didn't mind having the housewife, but they also didn't mind that she brought in some money as well. Kim Murray's in the building. Father Murray, my brother Rich Mo is in the building. Salute. So I'm going to open up the panel in after I finish reading what this article has to say. Also, I'll kind of loosely touch on this shooting that happened in Buffalo, New York. Again, it's about 2 to 3 hours away from New York City, so it's not in close proximity. We would call it upstate. We're considered downstate. And it supposedly was a lone gunman, and he was 18 years old. He said that he followed some blueprints out of the Dylan Rittenhouse, and he killed 10 people, shot 13, killed 10. And of course, in that area, there were more melanated people that lost their lives, then Lord Murray, excuse-moi, that were lost. I think there were 3 Caucasians or white people that had lost their lives as well. So, it's an unfortunate event. New York City is seeing a lot of gunplay come out lately in news media. So it is very unfortunate. And, I have some sympathy for the people who have lost their lives and for their family. Also, there was a milestone and a celebration for the Panthers 21, because as of May 12th, Afeni Mama Queen herself plus 20 other Panthers. I point retrograde. All right. Okay, guys. Mercury retrograde. So could be what I was saying. Okay, could be what I was saying, because the internet was working outside in my house in the living room. So I'm not going to talk about too much about that stuff. But like I said, the topic today is millennials would like to have housewives as of the yesteryears of 1950. Yes, I'm back. Yeah, the technical difficulties. Mercury retrograde is doing his or her damage. But there could be trigger words, because as I speak some truths and speak certain things, I got interrupted. All right. So Meanwhile, everything else in my house, the internet service was working. So YouTube, I was saying some trigger words. They're not really any trigger words that can get me taken off, but the universe knows better, and so therefore I will comply. The end of this discussion, I will be giving a wisdom oracle deck to, sop up that meat and potatoes. I'm also going to open up the panel for anybody who would like to discuss this topic and how do they feel about it. Also, the banner below that's running through is letting you guys know that I am still open for personal readings. Anybody that's interested can click into the link there, or just look at the banner going across for that information. We did have a solar eclipse that took place yesterday. I was able to stay up. So I looked probably tired, but I stayed up until almost until it finished. I was able to catch that blood moon. And I sure did put my little rituals and witchy stuff out there. I sure did. Because so it was a beautiful sight. And most of North America, South America, the UK could have witnessed this beautiful celestial event. Friday was the 4th of July is coming up. Friday the 13th. So some people look at that as scary, superstitious, spooky. No, it's actually a sacred number. 13 breaks down to 4, which is about building. It's about security, foundations. Also, if you subscribe to Jesus and them in the Bible, he made the 13th, right? There were 12 apostles and he made the 13th. So it's not a bad day at all. In fact, it's a very grounding and high vibrational number. 4, if anybody's seeing 444, that's high vibrational. That's working with Archangel Michael. So don't fall into the trap of Friday the 13th being scary, spooky, and all that stuff with the superstition. It ain't true. And so we saw some things play out on that day. So this article that I'm going to discuss is an article that came out May 7th from the New York Post, written by Sandy Wright. Not sure what her background is. Friday is Venus energy. Ooh, love it. So yeah, that's relationships, that's love. We're in this full moon of Scorpio, so it could have been looking a lot of sexual healing or sexual escapades, if you will. And I talked about that on Saturday as far as what that energy would be looking like in the romance department. We're still kind of in the midst of this blood moon, but the eclipse happened in the wee hours, so I'm not sure if no one on the Northern Eastern Standard Time will be able to see that because we saw it last night between 11 and 12 o'clock. So I definitely was able to watch that almost in its totality. I kept peeking back and forth and looking and seeing how the eclipse looked, how the color. So that's just me being a super nerd. But it also was my son's birthday, and he turned 24. And also it's the second year in a row that in my lifetime I was able to catch this blood moon. And out of the first blood moon, 2019, came Foxy Moon. So it definitely was a beautiful and sacral and spiritual day for me yesterday and today, because that energy is still carrying over. So this article that I posted for us to ponder about, I got some information I wrote down from a study that happened 2020 by a man named Kerwin Charles, coming out of Chicago, Chi-Town, and he's an economist. Y'all know I can't really speak so well, right? When it comes to these big old words. Economist. So he's coming out of UC, Chicago, and from Duke. So I'm going to just kind of read a little bit of what I wrote. I didn't get to write too much, but you know I like to freestyle some stuff, and I need to dot my I's and cross my T's. So as I'm doing that, you guys make sure to hit that like button, share this live, and I am going to just briefly go over the Fair Use Act, all right, of 1976. Okay. What did I put on my little notebook? I don't think I have my notebook out. Okay, hold on a second, guys. All right, so it's not going to. Oh wait, yes. Who's the smartest? And we're listening to some meditation music because YouTube has kindly reminded me a couple of times that I cannot play any of the music that is not owned by me. All right, so there's copyright, no-nos and taps on the wrist. All right. So fair use, copyright section 107 of the Copyright Act provides the statutory framework for determining whether something is in fair use and identifies certain types of uses, such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarships, and research. All right. And fair use is all I'm going to say. So now we got the copyright disclaimer out the way. I am going to talk about this article from the New York Post, and I will read a little bit from it. All right, so this is what the article looks like. All right, and it says millennial men want 1950 housewives after they have kids. This article didn't distinguish between Black males or white males or Asian males or Hispanic males. It just said millennials. So we're also going to look to see what millennials consist. What's that age bracket? I believe they are 30. I want to say 23 to 32. So let's just take a look and see what's considered a millennial. Definitely younger than me because I'm a Gen Xer. 1976. Okay. So between 1980 and 1995, those are millennials, all right? Or they call them a Gen Z, but really they're in the millennials. Gen Z would be like the teenagers of now. Or it could be anyone born 1996 to early mid-20s. So they're kind of changing how the baby boomers, the Xers, Ys, millennials, the Zs, they're trying to push the years up, I should say, as opposed to leaving it just as it is. But that's all their plan anyway, to try to stop time or slow time up. These people ain't Dr. Strange. You can't do that. All right. So that's what millennials are. Millennials are anyone between the year 1980 and 1995. So maybe some of you might be millennials in this group. I'm not sure. Cosmology Bay is in the building. Salute, bro. Yes, you caught the live, and I see. So Cosmology Bay has executed the hearing the message on Saturday. I did a reading in regards to what this full moon energy could be looking like. And in the romance department, I had mentioned yellow colors, eating fruits and vegetables of yellow hues. And Cosmology Bay said, I'm going to be wearing, my yellow shirts and sweatshirts and stuff. And he posted this delicious meal that he had cooked. And the first thing that I saw was yellow. So he had made, I think it was potato salad, was it? And macaroni salad. And the first thing that I noticed without everything else was the yellow. So he definitely took heed to what I had said. And I appreciate that very, very much. Thank you. Keep going with the yellows, because we're still in that full moon energy. So the next couple of days, like I said, fellas, this could be bringing that, romantic type situation. Ship or could be bringing a wife. So let me read a little bit about this article at hand. And again, after kind of what I've read, I will open the panel up. So if anybody wants to come on, I would definitely love to hear from the men's perspective, because this article was coming from the male perspective. All right. Macaroni salad. Okay, perfect. Yes. And he asked for suggestions of what to throw in there. And I was like, paprika, because paprika is a good seasoning. It's good for the digestive system. It helps, and the solar plexus is yellow. All right. So we definitely want to work on our solar plexus. Okay. Let's go into this article. Of course, I had it on my phone, on my computer, my laptop, but I'm using it. And so I don't want to log us out. All right. So I'm kind of just going to skim through a little bit. I don't want to read the whole article, but we did put the copyright out. And this article was posted May 7th. So this is very new. This was last week. All right. The ambition of a millennial woman has long been lauded. From her girl power childhoods to their PhDs. Women are now the backbone of the working force. Since 2018, 74 men earned bachelor degrees for every 100 women. So clearly we know that women, I believe there's 2 to 3 women per man. So, the other conversation is, well, does polygamy come into this? We can talk about that. Some 64% of women are now breadwinners or equal earners in their household. There's no wonder they've grown up being told that women are able to do and can be anything, right? Until they become mothers. Let's skim down a little bit. Among every household where partners initially split chores equally, childcare ends up falling to mothers. 75% of moms are the ones who assume responsibility for appointments, like checkups. Sometimes it's the soccer mom. We don't really hear soccer dad. We hear soccer mom. Okay. They are 4 times more likely than their partners to miss work to take care of children, miss work to take care of their children, a statistic that became too clear during this pandemic. All right. I kind of touched on this last week. I spoke about this kind of last week in regards to, rarely will you see a woman leave her children. Rarely will you see her, move on and leave her family to pursue whether her career, pursue schooling, education, pursue a relationship. And There was an article that just came out a couple of days ago as well, where a woman got divorced in pursuit of her soulmate, finding her soulmate, all for her soulmate to turn her down. So we come into that phrase, it's cheaper to keep her, but not all situations are blanketed in that whole in that little catchphrase. All right, so in 2013, a French paper by economics professor Francine Deblue and Lawrence McCain claimed that modern men do not adjust the amount of time they dedicate to housework based on their wives' employment status. All right, I will repeat that. Modern men do not adjust the amount of time they dedicate to housework based on their wives' employment status. So in other words, putting long hours in at the office doesn't mean your husband is necessarily going to pick up the slack and wash out the baby bottles. Women are exhausted and many of their partners just aren't helping. One mother goes into, talk about how she does all the work, so forth and so on. Professional working mothers who find themselves with partners who are unwilling to make that shift in perspective and allocation of time and resources have a tough choice. Radically compromise who they are and what they want to stay in the marriage or to leave. Plenty of women opt out for the latter. So basically, women are just like, you know what? Again, I can do bad by myself. My brother Zay's in the building. I don't want to, have to bother, if this man is not going to be my helpmate. I don't want him around. I don't need him around, because if I'm going to be working full time and being a parent full time, taking care of the household part time, what's his purpose? Kind of like an Al Bundy. All right, so this is how some women are feeling. Plenty of women opt out for the latter, according to a 2015 study of the American Sociological Association. Women initiate 69% of divorces, and among them are college-educated women, and that's about a 90%, because they're so smart that they're like, you know what? Again, I could do that by myself. This article is not, I want to say this is coming from a European, Caucasian, white perspective, not so much of the Black, African-American male person. All right. So this woman who's, they then interviewed a woman, again, another married mother, woman who she says initially she tried to tell herself that she was okay with traditional gender roles. However, she found that her contributions around the house were never fully valued. All right. Her husband gave people the impression that she was his spoiled wife. She divorced him, started flipping homes, and became an HGTV host who helps rebuild homes and families in need. Her kids could not be more excited about her work. And another woman that this Basil spoke to spotted the problem early on when her fiance told her that she would have to lower her ambitions. Let's skim through a little bit more. Again, I don't want to read the whole topic. They're interviewing now so this woman is an author, Lara Bazilon. Okay, Caucasian. She wrote a book called Ambitions, like a mother who prioritizes her career is good for her kids. In conclusion with this article, in 2022, for families to strive, husbands may need to start supporting their wives' careers the way their wives have supported their husbands for generations. women aren't going to go backwards. If men want relationships to last, they have to go forward in the 20th century. Exactly, Rasker. So we see that that's coming from just maybe one side of the coin. However, I researched a little bit more out of an article from the Chicago News EDU, and it's an economist by the name of Kerwin Charles, who did a study as far as white males and black males in the 1950s. Now, this article really didn't say that men were saying that they want housewives. This is clearly somebody, some married women having some gripes. But I understand, because I've been in that position, and it's very tiring and frustrating when you are a mother who is full-time at work, part-time going to school, raising 3 children, having a teenager, a middle schooler, and a toddler, where sometimes, you know, the household work is not evenly distributed. I'm kind of a stickler, so I can get a little picky the way I want things cleaned, but that's because I came from a household like that. And I'm going to share just a little bit about my background in as regards to the 1950s to 2022. I'm also going to read this article because it's going to tie into the Black family and how, you know, in 1950s, a lot of industrial power plants, automotives were in place. So we had a lot of the Black males out there working, you know, from sunup to sundown, while their wives were at home. Now, this particular article I got from somebody that was on Instagram, that was on a Black platform, and they were asking, you know, how do we feel about this article? So some women were like, no, this, you know, times have changed. And some, it would be half and half. Of some women were saying they wouldn't mind staying home and raising their children, as opposed to having strangers take care of their children, if they were getting the help from their counterpart. Finance wasn't too much of an issue, but of course, you know, it costs to have it would be more of a burden for a one family income, as opposed to 2 you know, family income. So wife and husband working and, you know, pulling in their money together. And then the men, surprisingly enough, was the same kind of results. Half of the men were saying we didn't mind if our wives stayed home. Most of them said that. I would say most of them said that, and maybe a handful were like, you know, it doesn't matter. We can be equal partners. I would like to have my woman have money. So in this, it's called, so I titled it Wealth Gaps, because as we know, statistically, back in the 1950s, while even though our fathers, grandfathers, uncles were making some money that could support the one family household economically, we also understand that the white counterpart, the white male, was definitely economically more successful. Okay. In this particular study, Mr. Charles has gone on to see that, you know, the gap started getting closer. It was closing in more and more as politics were playing into effect. We go into the civil rights, and we are, you know, our, you know, forefathers, our grandfathers, our uncles were out there. You know, some were marching. Right, civil rights. The policy of civil rights took place. And so therefore, the boycotts were happening. There was a big economic shift. Prior to that, there wasn't really that much of an issue. Not to say that there was no issue, but the boom of the Civil Rights era is definitely where this discrepancy, definitely where we see this economic shift pull, and for the worst of it. not so much the better of it. Brass girl says she's all ears. Yay. So, a black man in the middle of his economic distribution is no closer to his white counterpart in the terms of earnings than was his grandfather. So basically, as I just said, in the 1950s, black men were, the opportunity for them to getting a job was, it didn't matter if they had a high school diploma. They just needed the skill trade. They just needed, some experience, and, boom, they can land a job. As I said, with civil rights, this propelled that political agenda, and therefore the racism, the race bait, came into effect, and our black men were being ostracized, or downright not being accepted, going into certain workforces, workplaces, restaurants, as we see. Okay. Also, they, again, as I just mentioned about education, they weren't most likely to go into education because they did have a large family to provide for. So, education for the men of the 1950s wasn't a big thing, as it has moved to, the 2000s, 2022. And of course, with education, you can succeed in getting, landing a job that is, 6 figures, as they say, 7 figures. All right. While these discrepancies were happening with the black male, along with that became the jail incarceration, right, and the less skilled. Because I just said that civil, the era of the civil rights, we see that, the males, there was a big boom in arrests, disparaged within getting a job, again, discriminated against getting a job, where 10 years prior to that, they weren't being discriminated. Okay. Back in the 1940s, so even 10 years before this, the 1950s, there were plenty of jobs for men with less than a high school degree, and within 10 years dropped from the biggest top of the gap to the smallest of the top of the gap. So what that looks like, again, is that there was this opportunity for, the black males even back in the 1940s. But again, this 1960s is what really shifted the dynamic, shifted the economics, the paradigm of, black males not being able to either sustain a high-paying job or getting a job at all. Therefore, it would put the mother or the wife in a predicament, in a position where she would then have to either rely on social services to help, right? Because we saw the division again with our forefathers, our fathers being pushed out of the household, so that, our mothers can then get some kind of financial aid from the government. The advices made by the highest achieving African American men show the positive impacts of race specific to policies, as we saw over the past decades. 90% virtually of the gain comes from the race specific advancements, and black men who are on top of their group in terms of skill and education are doing better, right? But this is just as of recent. This isn't back in the 1950s. So that kind of concludes off of that. So for a millennial, right, who's 32 years old or 27, saying, I want to have a housewife as of the 1950s. Well, they have to do their research. They have to look back. How was that looking in the 1950s as to now? We know that there's an inflation, and we see prices going up. millennials are not really having children the way they are, their great grandfathers and great grandmothers were in the 1950s. So we had, 6 children in a house, or even 12, and somehow they made it. But also realize that they had help from their mothers, their aunts, their cousins, and that housewife that also was at home. So with that, the housewife of yesteryears, of the 1950s, she wouldn't complain so much, and want to say, oh, I want to get a job. That wasn't she didn't conceive that, because her job was to take care of the children, keep the house clean, keep them fed, and she had help. So if she complained, it'd be like minor things, or the children were stressing her out. And yes, the father would come in and help, but his job was kind of far and few from the chores in the house, right? He was doing what we call the typical male responsibility. So, he's in charge of bringing home the bacon, as they say, or the veggie burger now. It's still kind of like that, but we see now more males, black males, if you will, melanated, having degrees, maybe even a couple of degrees, right? And balancing the household. So they're, rarely saying we want to have our women stay home, because they understand now that that's a luxury in a way. It's almost a luxury to have that one parent stay home, if they can afford it. It's like, so as I said in the article, somebody was putting up a front, and it looked like the wife was spoiled, but in actuality, she was working, raising the children, and doing all the household chores, while the husband, was working in long hours, and then, he probably was hanging out with his buddies. We just have to look at also the dynamics of the, Caucasian counterparts to the African American, if you will, or melanated, and socially, economically, and physically, there are different jobs and criteria and roles, as I had mentioned last week, that each parent has to play out. So while, sure, would moms love to stay home and take care of their children, and raise them? Absolutely. Absolutely. But then the notion of some women want to have their own pocket change. And back in the 50s, women and housewives were given allowances by their husband. So my background, my mother, or grandmother rather, well, my great grandmother worked as well. They came from Jamaica, and then they migrated to Miami, and then came up to New York, and they both worked. My grandparents worked as well. But my grandmother said, now this is on my mom's side. So my grandmother said that she and her husband, my grandfather worked he had a city job, blue collar, and he also was in the Navy. And because of that, he knew how to sew and stitch clothing. She didn't. And she said she would give her torn up stockings, pantyhose to her husband, and he would mend them. He also would clean the house, and he would cook. And he did an immaculate job at taking care of the household. When it came to the children, my grandmother would then come home, go over homework, feed, and bathe them. So she didn't really have to do too much hands-on in the household. Maybe Saturdays she would then clean up or whatever, but they were like entertaining guests and stuff. These two were little, I would say, high rollers. And that was in the 1950s. My mother was born 1953. So they lived in a 3-family home in the Bronx that my great grandparents purchased. So my great grandparents had 2 homes. They had one in the Bronx and one in Mount Vernon, New York. And that's because my great grandmother pinched her little pennies together and was able to save and to get these homes. So now the opposite spectrum come my mother's generation, that's the baby boomers. She did her housework, she did her chores, and she raised her children. But I was coming from where my father kind of was like my grandfather. He, did the cleaning. They both did the cooking. They both took turns with, chores, laundry, grocery shopping, mopping, you name it, whatever the household chores were. And they both, but more so my mother was the one that would go over my homework. So between me and my brother, they're 6 years apart. So he was a baby while my mother was, raising me in grade school. So I'm coming from that where it wasn't, I never saw anybody stay home. I never saw the women stay home. So I don't know what that looked like. But for me, I'm fortunate enough now to do that. But yes, the money is tight and it does, wear thin. But I always worked. I've been working since I was 14. Y'all know that I had a teenage, I was a teenage mom. So 15, I got pregnant. And then I was like, we got to work. We got to, get this money. My grandmother also said that one of the reasons why she did work, and she worked for a city job as well, was because she didn't want to rely on her husband to give her an allowance. She said, if I wanted to buy a silk pair of pantyhose, it's my money. That was the 1950s. So that mindset hasn't really changed currently, because women are like that to this day, Brother Richmo, to this day. Women still want to have that independence. They don't want to rely on their mate in that sense, especially little personal things. And that's what my grandmother was saying. Like, she wanted to buy her own pantyhose or undergarments. She had that liberty of doing that. And that I can see is the same thing, how I am. I like to buy, and my husband has bought clothes for me. He's gone out and bought shoes and wardrobe and never really undergarments. So that would be me. My money would go towards that. So, I kind of was, I guess, fortunate in that sense. But then again, I'm coming from this bloodline, this dynasty of matriarch and patriarch both worked. I didn't see anybody stay home. Then my mom brought me to a babysitter, so she wasn't a stay-at-home mom either. I had the opportunity where I had unfortunately lost my job. So when I was pregnant with our son, I was able to stay home with him, and I loved it. But, we were living with grandma. So we didn't want to stay there too much longer. And so it was like, yeah, I guess it's time for me to work. So my son was 3 months old and I went back into the workforce. And it was bittersweet because while I'm having this bonding moment, I'm, pushing myself back into, workforce, and I hadn't stopped again until we had our youngest daughter back in 2007. So it's kind of a debate. I don't know. So now I'm going to open up the floors. If anybody, you need your scroller. Okay. It can be a luxury. That's what and do we want to say luxury? It's a privilege, maybe more than a luxury. A luxury would be like having 3 cars, or having live-in nanny or something like that. It's a privilege to be able to stay home and raise your children and not really sweat money, as an issue, or, if the husband comes home, there's this shared responsibility of everything, everything's almost split down the line. So it can be debatable, I think we're all on one accord when we say that in the Black families, it's definitely disproportioned. There may be a little more stressors because of the lack of resources or the discrimination. And we also have to remember that there is a, not code, but when we're looking at economics, that the so-called white man is first, the white woman, the black male, and then the black female. So she's still under, no matter how much it's this black girl magic in quotes, no matter how powerful black women may look on the surface and in media, she's still the last man on the totem pole, according to their economics, according to how they have rigged the system, if you will. Right. Now we're going to touch back into when the disproportion also happened in regards to incarcerations. We have to go back into when the war happened, Vietnam War, around that 60s, okay, during that civil war, if you will. Right, Raz girl? Bingo. So when our grandfathers and fathers came back, here's where we're going to find where the politics kick in even harder for the black males. When they came back from war, they were not given the same opportunities the way their white counterparts were. And I'm not making this the black and white race and all that good stuff. I'm bringing this the science and scientifics of it, right? It's no surprise, really. And if it is, then we have to do our research. But white males were given the opportunity to get on their GI Bill when they came home from the war. They were then able to buy a home for their wife. They were no more living in apartments or living with their in-laws. They're now able to buy a home for themselves and for their family through this GI Bill. Whereas the black counterpart, the black males coming home, were not given that same opportunity. If anything, their resources were cut and, if not denied. So getting a home, some of them were coming back on drugs. So you had this methadone addict come through. You know, a lot in the major cities, it happened. New York City, in order for the veterans to get some type of service from the government, they had to get on another drug so that they can be then treated and housed. So this left this gap open for the mothers, especially the black mothers, to fend for themselves and then have to now go on social services. But social service was actually in place for the white females, the Caucasian women. That's where social service was open for, because their males, their men were at war. They had nobody else besides family members to financially support them. So when they got off social services because their husbands were allowed or allotted the GI Bill, now the black woman is facing that same problem, and even harder because her husband is not given those same rights, even though he served the same country. Right. What about the black soldiers? So both my great grandfather and my grandfather, one served the British War, because as I said, he came from Jamaica, and my grandfather did World War II. Knock on wood, he didn't have any PTSD. And so he was a functioning man, Black man, and was able to get a civil servant job in New York City. And he was a conductor for the New York City Transit Authority. So he was a conductor for the trains and make good money. That's what I'm saying. My grandparents were living that little high life. Kudos to them. So that was an honor and a privilege, because some counterparts weren't that fortunate, as I'm stating right now. So therefore, the wives would have to go on social services and say, you know, my husband's not here, or really, truly, she couldn't find him because he probably was strung out on drugs and, you know, living on the streets or living in homeless shelters. So therefore, she would have to go to social services and ask for assistance. Well, what became something of a help started to become a hindrance, because now we know that the government, we're going to get a check every month, right? And so women were waiting for that check. There was a Black woman in the 70s that they dubbed, I believe it was Nixon or Reagan. If you guys remember, they called her the welfare queen. But she wasn't the welfare queen because she was sitting on her duff waiting for the checks to come in. She had gotten a divorce, or she had a divorce, and she, I believe, got laid off, or her job wasn't paying enough, and she went on social service, or not social service. She went into welfare. She claims, you know, it wasn't like she loved to sit around waiting for the check to come in, but, you know, there is this comfort of knowing you're going to get a stable check every month, without any worries, without any qualms, you know, on a specific date, the first of the month. Bone Thugs and Harmony saying that you're getting a paycheck. So there are generations of women, mainly Black women and Hispanics, that do live off that system. So you have generations of daughters that are welfare queens, if you will, Section 8, that they're, you know, they're guaranteed an apartment where they won't bat an eye at me because I worked and I still was making under a certain criteria. And I was like, damn it, let me get on this Section 8. I think I'm still on the waiting list somewhere. I'm like, you know, I'll pay for it then, damn it. If I got to go through all this rigmarole, it's not worth it. Because what they want you to do is lie to the system, play along with the game to then get awarded this money. It's not really yours. It's the taxpayers' money. So there you go. So this is debatable, and I believe that this article was being asked by white millennial men. Because I don't think, and I might be speaking out of turn, this is where I'm going to open the floor up to you guys, that the Black millennial man, I have one, he just turned 24 yesterday, he ain't thinking about no babies, let alone having a housewife. He's trying to make ends meet for himself right now. He lives at home. He's not thinking about this housewife. So let's see. Let's open up the lines. And what say y'all? What say y'all? Men, women, we want to hear, I want to hear the perspective. We want to hear, Section 8 seems confusing. Yes, because you have to basically lie, but Section 8 is really allotted towards, first criteria are mother and child that are homeless. So Some women are lying and saying that there are, homeless. They have to go to a shelter, and through the shelter, then they are able to get an apartment through Section 8. Battered women are the second criteria, and HIV is the third. All right. Then after that, they're not really batting an eye too much at you. If you're just like, oh, I'm living in cramped quarters, you got a home, you got a house. Other than that, they're not really looking to help you. Right? I'm just lighting some Palo Santo. And even with the two parent income, there's still sometimes a third income that needs to come in. So somebody's working part-time with a full-time job. And if a parent wants to go back to school, the income, they're taking out loans, and therefore they still have to pay those loans back because they're not getting financial aid. Not really. What happens if the spouse is laid off, or what happens if there's a downsizing in the company, right? So there's still that one other parent that has to pick up that load, that financial load. So also in this Instagram post, when this person, I believe it's a man, posted this article that's the topic today. Or it might have been a female, because people were commenting. Yes, it was a female, because she had then said that, with all that stress, working full time, taking care of the children, cleaning up the home, the sexual stuff starts to go out the window. Either she's too tired, or she's just looking at him like, God dang you ain't good for nothing. So, the disgust and the disdain, or vice versa. The men could be looking at her like, you clean up yourself. You don't look at you like you're not put together, right? So he could be feeling a certain kind of way in the relationship. So Very Happy says, right. Those the ones that they've gotten their stamps, all right, because they got 2 shopping carts stacked to the brim of anything and everything you can think of. And I've been looking at them. Yes, I'm judgy. I'm a little judgmental. It's in my human design. And I'm looking like my little basket, and I'm like, can I afford to get this? I might have to, reasoning what I might need to put back. My guilty pleasure versus the kids' snacks. And even when I get to the checkout, the counter, or the cashier rather, I'm still like, let me see how that screen looks. Let me see what my balance is. What? Rationalizing. You might not be able to get your little snacks because the kids need their snacks. So you're suppressing you know what I'm saying? This is about being responsible though. But who are the ones that got them stamps. The shopping cart is filled to the brim. And there's a lot of junk in there, a lot of junk food. You see, I'm like, that's what y'all. Let me shut up. But I'm like, that's what y'all doing? Like, there's a small portion of fruits and vegetables, but everything else is like snacks galore for the kids. I get it. Mine were little at that age too. So we would go to the super, stop at BJ's or Costco's and big boxes, cookies and cakes. So I get it. But, for the working class, they're really, there's some people that are looking at their little basket or the shopping cart, like, I might have to put a couple of things back. Or when you get to the counter and you only have just that exact amount, you know how many times I was like, can you put that one back? Just last week, I was giving the girl coupons. The people behind me were like, what? I'm like, ring. See, I got $2 off of what? So the girl, she was really cute. She said, you go, coupon girl. I said, yeah, man, I got $2 off. So what? So what? So, yeah, what do they want? Yeah, so, you know, it is a debatable conversation because, you know, it's up, you know, it's up for discussion. Like, do we stay home, or, you know, what do we have that privilege? Can we? Right? You're looking to count coins, cut corners. Yeah, listen, I'm coming from both sides of the spectrum. So yes, you definitely, you have to do what you have to do. So, you know, this country is the country of capital gains, right? So you're capitalizing off of something. It's the name of the game. But do we want to say that we want to have things like the 1950s? Yes, it was a simpler time. But economically, how does that look? We see the gas prices are going up, right? So you're spending, you know, $50. I don't know. I don't drive. But $20 is not getting you, you know, too much. Quarter a tank. And if you have a SUV or, you know, a truck, you're going to go through some money to fill that up. All right, back and forth commuting. Ooh, Lady Fresh is in the building. Salute to the Capitan, the boss. Yeah, I have the link if you want to come up. I know you're at work. But you know, you are a housewife, or a wife rather. You're housewife after work. You know, and this day and age, you know, everybody wants to kind of be an entrepreneur. They want to get out of that because the moms want to be able to stay home, right? And it's almost a blessing in disguise the way this pandemic happened, because it shut everything down. Like the countries literally stopped. New York City was just on complete radio silence. And so it got a lot of people going into what they call bag and figuring things out, because where was money coming from, right? Oh, sure, we got the stimulus. If you were smart enough, you took your stimulus and invested. You know, you put into some things, right? Some of us were going out there getting the Gucci slides and the Gucci belt to match, and you in the PJs. I'm just saying. I just told y'all I'm a little judgy. Just a little judgy. What are you doing with that 15 coming through? So this situation asked us to look at our economics, our finances. Where, you know, parents were home teaching their children or doing a virtual from their, you know, with the schools, with the children's schools. So there was this homeschooling, literally homeschooling. And to moms, I know for myself, I was, you know, very downtrodden and a little heartbroken when my daughter was going back and they were doing like the hybrid, which was 2 days in school, 3 days at home, because I want my babies home with me. I didn't have that luxury with my older two. So for my little one, her to stay home, I was like, besties. And I was a little misty when she was going back, because I enjoyed her company. I could monitor her a little more closely. And it's nothing like knowing that your child is safe, they're right underneath you, and so their whereabouts, right? Because parents, when they're at work, they want to make sure they have their heart in their throat. Is my child safe? Are they okay? Did they get to the destination safely? All these things play out in your mind as a parent when your child is going off to school and they're at an age where they can go by themselves. So that plays a little, mental psyche on you. So those 2 years that happened for us was definitely a blessing in disguise. It was a reset for some of us to really, I'm home already, so it just bothered me that everybody was home. But usually everybody is home. Every day they were home, and I was just like, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. Because I knew my family was safe. We were in our confines. So that was a great opportunity, and a lot of small businesses started to crop up. A lot of online, a lot of entrepreneurship started. Foxy Moon started. 2019, I had already been there, but it definitely was a catalyst for this right now. So we saw people getting creative. We saw people, really getting into what they call the bag and just taking off from there, because they knew we can't rely. We don't have a job, and so in the future, what does that look like? We may or may not have a job, or those positions could be phased out. What do we do then? So a lot of the melanated folks got real crafty, and we always are. So the stuff that I've been seeing, that I've been subscribing to, really, companies that I subscribe to, that I bought products from, this is all kind of being birthed out of the pandemic situation. And moving forward, a lot of people are now like, and especially the millennials. So what did we say the millennials were? 1980 to 1995. So that got the creative juices, if you will. Let's see what the millennials, I believe it's 1980 to 19. Yes, hold on. So millennials are anyone between 1980 and 1995. Maybach's in the building. Salute, King. Maybach would be a good person to, if you're not busy, who's also a parent, can come on and voice your own truths or your opinion. For everybody that's coming through now, salute. This conversation is about an article that came out in the New York Post on May 7th, where it was, I want to say, Caucasian male millennials were saying that they would like to have a housewife of the 1950s. I don't know if that can fly right, but we understand that their families systemically have had the privilege and the luxury of having housewives at home, right? We saw shows like The Desperate Housewife and The Real Housewives of Jersey Shore and The Real Housewives of Atlanta. We saw that play out on TV of how that looks to the wealthy, the privileged that can stay home and take care of their children. Or some men really like, nope, I don't want my woman going nowhere. She's going to stay home. She's going to take, there was this thing of, I want my woman home barefoot and cooking. Pregnant, barefoot and cooking. Unga, unga. All right. Sure. And that was kind of some men putting the fear of God into some of these women. So they were almost kind of trained and desensitized to having a mind for their own. They had to really obey. These are one of those 10 commandments, and religion comes into the play. Heavy religion back then, where it's like, you honor your husband and your wife. Your husband is head first. Mm-hmm. So you had a lot of women really honoring those vows to a T, whereas nowadays it's this equal opportunity, right? Some the tables have turned in some cases where some women are very bossy and demeaning to their men, or what we call emasculating their males, right? Because they've gotten so much into this power role that they have really taken on this boss mentality where they're carrying it out at home. So, they're being very bossy to their husbands, very dominating. So I don't want to say that, it's just the men that are doing this, but the women actually have, tables have turned. And so they're taking on that persona of, I'm the boss. It costs to pay, play with the boss. Excuse me. So definitely. Okay, cool. Definitely. There's a shift. There's a changing of the guards, if you will. And so it leaves room for tables to turn, right? Where we now actually get to see, for some people, a female vice president of the biggest corporation in the world, the United States. So Maybach's in the building. All right. So let's get that perspective going. Salute. Thank you for coming through, Grand Rising. My brother Maybach, what is good?
Life is good. Appreciate that. Grand Rising to you and all the beautiful queens that are in the chat in attendance.
Yes.
So
drop it on me. What is it looking like?
What do you mean? What do you want to know? Hit me.
Well, how is this conversation? How is this article making sense or not making sense to you? Millennial men wanting to have housewives as of the 1950s.
I'm with that to a certain extent, and the other half of me is like, how can I put it? Like the women that I'm attracted to. I like women that have very high self-esteem. They know, they know what they want. You understand what I'm saying? Like, to me, I don't really want someone that I can control. Like, if I want to control anything, I can go play video games. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I understand how society is making things these days where women, and it's only in our culture. And I'm glad that you're having this discussion, because I don't hear clear white women saying they don't need a man. I don't hear Latin women, Spanish women saying they don't need a man. It's only in our community that women are saying that. And to me, it's a personal attack on melanated culture, or people, I should say, with everything that's going on. I sent you two things on IG. Whenever you get a chance, I think you'll be interested to watch them and stuff like that. But
Copy.
I feel like everything that is going on in our culture is being controlled, or we being programmed to think a certain way. You understand what I'm saying? It's just like I think it was you who brought up the article about the reporter who made the comment about, you know, melanated women should be with black men. Now that would never. You remember that? Remember that? That was a great live, great discussion
Yeah, I
between.
think that you were on that panel as well.
Correct. It was you, Lotus, and I that was on there that day.
Yeah.
So that's just my point. I know I'm like going, bouncing from left, right, up and down, whatever. But a lot of these things is, we're being pre-programmed, and we had the same discussion, such as some of the singers who's telling you to be single, be powerful, but yet they're in a relationship. You understand what I'm saying? So I feel like a lot of stuff is being driven and used on our culture to make people believe certain things when that's really not what it is. But and so to answer your question, I will, like I said, I like the traditional because we're both West Indian, Caribbean people, so we know how it is to be cultured.
Irie.
And how the women were back in time, whether they was raised by their grandmother or their mother, it was just it was different. Women was raised a certain way to take care of the man. I've said it on a panel where women, when they cooked food, the men ate first and got the bigger portion of the meat and stuff like that. Nowadays, it's the reverse. It's the kids that's getting the food first, and then it's the parents that's eating. So
listen, I'm guilty of that because my kids get served first. And I tell him, you can get your own plate or I'll maybe get something. But yeah, only because even though my family is coming from the Caribbean background, as I had said, or maybe you didn't catch it, my great grandparents and my grandparents and my parents, they both worked, mother and father. So I didn't see a housewife at home. And my grandfather cooked pretty much all the meals. So there wasn't this serving, but in the Hispanic, the Puerto Rican culture, they are geared to, serve the husband first out of respect because he's head of household. So that's how they're looking at it. As I had mentioned about traditions of religion, it's honoring the husband and, wife, but husband is head and then wife is second. Correct.
That's the way I was raised as well, too. Both of my parents, I grew up in a household with both of my parents and my 4 siblings. Like I saw my mom's, my mother took care of a lot of stuff, even though my dad was around, he was working, he owned his own business, but my mom's was like the one, she was balancing the bank accounts, you know what I'm saying? Just doing like the woman thing, So I grew up in that household where it was the reverse for me. My mother cooked and she served my father. Like I've seen that my whole entire life until he passed away in 2012. Like every time she cooked, his plate was the first plate always made. We never had an issue or whatever. I'm not gonna say he ended up with the big pieces of meat, but we all got plated right. Our plates was all plated right. You know what I mean? So
So my brothers, they just said, nah, Foxy, the babies eat first, then you serve it.
But I feel like we're supposed to if I'm in a marriage, I think, I'm supposed to serve my wife in a lot of ways and vice versa. You know what I'm saying? I think it should be an equal balance on both ends. You know what I'm saying? Now, whatever you're great at, I let you handle those things. And whatever I'm great at, you let me handle, a lot of the things. But like I said, to me, with society and how they try to program, you got women that's supposed to be naturally born feminine or trying to be masculine. Then you have, the men who is very masculine. Now they trying to make us feminine. So they trying to reverse the roles. That's what I see. You know what I'm saying? But me, as long as I'm alive.
Systematically.
Correct. That's what I mean by that. Yep, correct. But that doesn't mean that I have to subscribe to what society, is pushing out there and stuff like that. I like the, like I said, I like the old tradition, but that doesn't mean that,
Right.
Logically thinking, yeah, I would, it's supposed to be one. Go ahead.
Exactly. No, it makes sense logically. I subscribe to that to an extent as well. The traditional household, as I had mentioned just before you came on, it is. We don't want to say that it is a luxury. I would say it's more of a privilege if a mom can stay home and rear her children,
Correct.
and teach stuff without having to worry about the finances.
Correct.
But yeah, I like that traditional, it would make sense to have mom and dad in the house. Now, you said there's 3 siblings plus yourself. So
four others.
So how many children did your parents have?
5 in total. So it's 5. Only, so I have 3 sisters, 2 older. I'm the 4th child. So I have 2 older sisters, then my brother's 3rd, I'm 4th, and then I have a younger sister.
Okay, so let me see how I'm trying to ask this question to you. For the most part, were your parents hands-on as far as, instilling the values and virtues and gearing your morals, right? Were they both?
Yes. Yep.
Would you agree that if one parent was just active, and for the 5 children, would you agree or not agree that it would be harder? One child is going to be left out. One child may or may not get this message that the parent is trying to, raise and gear. Would you agree that it would be harder on that one parent to try to do that for all those children?
I think so. But I would say, I can't speak on that because really.
No, this is just an opinion.
I got you. I would say that it comes down to the individual because, if you have 5 kids, you suppose, it's kind of hard to give each child that individual love, attention, everything like that. It's kind of tough for one person to do that. So I will say, logically, I would say, I don't know. I would say it's a 50-50.
Yeah, or it would make sense that there should be a mother and a father in the household.
Correct. Definitely. It makes it much.
So back in the 1950s, we didn't really hear about. I mean, if we heard that Papa was a Rolling Stone, it was word of mouth. But for the most part, our grandparents there was this 2-head household, 2-parenting household.
Correct.
And so I had said before, like half an hour ago, that as you mentioned, systematically and systemically, that it wasn't until the Civil Rights era that really propelled, and there's this disproportion between the white males and the black males as far as economics, resources, and education.
Correct.
It almost was, it's by design, because if you look back in the 1950s, the job opportunities, they were, our grandfathers were having these opportunities. Was there racial discrimination? I'm sure, but they still were able to make it work, and they still provided for their families.
Correct. I feel like it's still like that now. I think it's set up for us to fail. I mean, I'm not saying that, we don't prevail in these times. The times is totally different from back then. You know what I'm saying? We are prevailing, but I feel like we still don't have a seat. And when I say a seat at the table, I'm talking about real leaders. Like, quick off the subject, one of the things that I sent you is about a leaked Zoom call that Joe Biden had with a few quote unquote black leaders. And he said some very disrespectful stuff. And they just sat on that Zoom call on the panel. This is men and women, like I said, quotations, black leaders. And we all know there's never going to be a real black leader. I mean, J. Edgar Hoover wrote the playbook.
Not like
back then.
My good brother, the Honorable Malcolm X.
Correct. There will never be those. And like I said, this is a quote from J. Edgar Hoover saying that they will never, ever be a Black Messiah. So that's why I said he wrote the playbook. So all of these ones that we see nowadays that's coming up, popping up from the woodworks, those are all handpicked. You know what I'm saying? And they paid. These are all facts. That's not my opinion, but I will keep it, respectful and PC because this is your platform. So I would say this is my opinion because we know how these platforms work. You know what I'm saying? And stuff like that. But yeah, it's like I said, it's a system, I have a friend, he has a saying. I've heard it before, but I've only heard him really say it like that. It's we're born to lose, but built to win, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? We're born to lose, but built to win, and that's how I feel. You know what I'm saying? With a lot of stuff. And that's what I'm trying to instill into my kids as them being toddlers is the minute that you say you can't do something or you can't, now you're really not going to do it. Never think that you can't. You know what I'm saying? Always put in your mind that you always can. And even if it takes you a bunch of tries, just keep on pushing because, we have power within all of us. You know what I'm saying? So we can make things manifest and stuff like that. So,
absolutely.
Correct.
And I like that you brought the subject of the entertainers, or not the subject, but you pointed and highlighted that the entertainers, especially in our culture, because it's really us that brought out this entertainment, actually. That you do have the likes of a Sasha Fierce, who's saying all the single ladies. And put a ring on it, but you have a husband. Correct. So there's this disservice and there's this message going out. And not to say that women, especially Black women, we're powerful. Correct. We sustain so much. We're spiritually innate. Listen, me and Razgirl had this conversation on her platform as far as like, somebody begged to differ as far as me saying the Black people are the chosen. Maybe not so, but we're highly favored. And so even if you go back into scripture, which I don't want to, I don't really subscribe to it, but it resonates in my soul. I was brought up that way. Yeah. And this is how they use religion into baiting us and going against one another. Because what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. Correct. We will thump you in the head with this Bible, but in the name of certain racist, fascist groups, they're doing it in the guise of religion. Correct. Because you know why they do that? Because we should know by now that why religion was even created. It was another form of suppression and oppression and controlling. Controlling and pre-programming the minds. Oh, you just sin. I was telling somebody this the other day, like, I went to Catholic school from like 2nd grade to 5th grade. And I remember confessions and I did it one time. Okay. I did it one time and I'm like, okay, I stole something. And I always thought it was weird to go inside of a like wooden box. Booth. Yes. Correct. And tell another human being that is not holier than thou, that is not better than you, to tell and confess when, I felt like if I just got on my knees, or not necessarily getting on my knees, but I just, being and the higher power, the Messiah, the one and only, and told him what I did, that should have been good enough. Exactly. But I was programmed as a child. And that's what I said. Like when we get older, we start to reflect and we look back at certain things that we did. We're like, yo, that didn't even make no sense. Right. Why did I do that? But they controlled me. They made me think that it's just like I said, man, I'm gonna keep my opinions because when we get into these type of conversations, it gets touchy for a lot of people. It's a little hairy. Yeah. Correct. And definitely religion and sex and politics. Those are the hot topics and the hotbeds of people go to war for all this stuff. Correct. What's great about us is that we are on the same think tank, but we can agree to disagree and it be cordial. Like I'm not gonna be like, Maybach, like what? Like I got a beef with you now because you said something ill will towards women. I understand certain things and I don't my grandmother had said, well, why would you like Tupac when he's calling women bitchs? And I said, Grandma, he ain't calling me one, but I understand who he's talking about.
See, and I love this fact. Matter of fact, I got because you just reminded me something, right? I have to take it back because you touched up a little bit on it, but I seen other platforms talk about the man who passed away. Initials KS, right?
Yep.
All right. Now, I went on a platform and this woman really wanted to not even debate, because a debate is, like you just said, it's cordial. It's my opinion versus your opinion, and no one is wrong, right? An opinion last time that I read up about it, but I don't really subscribe to the Webster, because, he's a whole,
Right.
whatever. People can research Mr. Webster and see what he subscribed to, his lifestyle, what he funded and all that. So I don't really pay attention to the same thing with Google. I don't search things on Google as well. These are different funny entities. But long story short, what was I going to say? Yeah, so a woman got mad at me. Well, a young lady got mad at me because I was like, listen, I didn't subscribe to his channel. I really pay attention to everything like it was God. I know some people uplift him. I'm not saying everything that he said was wrong, but some of the stuff that he said, we do need that. We're living in a world where we have to be PC, politically correct. Oh, it's like, I don't want to really tell Foxy what I really feel because I'm going to hurt her emotions and feelings. Last time I checked, if I am your friend, right, a true friend, I should be able to tell my sister if she's falling, hey, sis, what are you doing? What's going on? You're messing up. You're effing up. You need to get back online. I'm not supposed to worry about your feelings and your emotions. I'm supposed to give it to you raw and uncut and not gift wrap anything for you, because a lot of people, well, me, I would say, I love receiving a message very bluntly and honestly. It's not about my feelings. Oh, am I going to hurt Maybach? Is he going to get upset? F that. If I'm falling off the ship and you're a real friend, I want you to pick me back up, or at least give me some words of advice and wisdom, so I can get back on my feet. Like we're living in this, like I said, I did Pop Warner coach, and the time that I did it, I'm glad, I was able to help a kid lose a lot of weight. Like I would, motivate him by talking Creole to him, kind of disrespecting him, like, telling him you're fat and all of this other stuff. You know what the parents did when he lost half of himself? When I say half of himself, meaning the weight that he lost. Right. Got rid of the gut. He put it like this. He was like a Rick Ross at the beginning, and then Rick Ross now, the transformation without no surgery or nothing like that. The parents came back and was thanking me and the other coaching staff that we motivated him. But guess what? Years later, when I came to coach again, they made us sign these papers basically saying, we can't call the kids fat to motivate them. And I'm like, well, if you looked at how I was coached when I was coming up playing basketball, you would have thought that was really verbal abuse. We was very disrespected, but it was all to get the best out of you as a human being. Right. But that's, once again, how things change. People think that it's one way and it's really not. You know what I'm saying? Oh, listen to her. She's singing this song about empowerment. That's fine, about, black girl magic and all this other stuff. Right. But we got to think logically. Let's be realistic. So that's what my point about KS, when he was telling certain women, like, yo, you have 5 kids by 5 different men and you want a high value man. Like, right. That's what you're supposed to say. Yeah. Just like me, if I got two of my kids that I have and I'm not in their lives and I'm not active and I'm like, well, I want a 6-figure woman. I would want a man or a woman to be like, sir, that is not realistic. That is not logical. You know what I mean? It's not
and not to cut your wisdom, but I'm going to cut it. But he brought about an interesting logic as well with, women at a certain age, we're at a crossroads with our biological clock. And yes, men could, Dr. Sebi had a child when he was 80 years old. He had many children, but he when he left this earth, he had a 2-year-old and he was 80 years old. An 80-year-old woman cannot. So I get some of the stuff that KS, it was his deliverance and how he said it, not so much what he said. Correct. And if you are an emotional creature, then you are going to, I never hit the subscribe button on his platform. I heard him one time last year when he was going off on, telling a woman that she's a 6 at best and that she will die alone. I was like,
Correct.
what is going on here?
That's my point. Like, I'm not saying everything the man said was gospel. Yeah. I'm not, once again, I'm not calling him the God, the Godfather of this.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it. And I had to learn that too. That was the same thing for me growing up. It wasn't what I said, but how I said it, the tone that I used. You know what I'm saying? And I had to understand that. Okay, when you're dealing with other human beings, the way our relationship is between us, it's not going to be the same between, example, me and Lotus relationship is not going to be the same way. The way I speak to you, I might feel free to where I could give it to you really 100% raw and uncut.
Yeah, right.
And, and Lotus, I might have to, dumb it down a little bit, or I might have to ease up on, the
make
rawness.
It a little sweeter.
Correct. So that's all about, and that's another thing. We could talk about all this stuff, like where people don't actually, because of the times that we live in, there's really no real socializing anymore to really actually overstand someone. Oh, okay, I get Foxy. When she cracks her jokes, she has a serious face, but she's being very sarcastic. Right. I understand that about you. Get what I'm saying? Lotus over here, she's giving it to you with a big smile, but really, you know what I'm saying? Like, just we have this problem because we have these little gadgets in our hand and we're texting and we're not really understand. Yo, did you send me that message with an attitude? And the person could be like, no, you know what I mean? And all of it. It's a lot of things that play into it. So,
this exclamation, are you mad at me? What did you, and I'm not the best. Like, sometimes my messages there's words misspelled and you're trying to type so fast on it. So yeah, it can get misconstrued. And then now you got beef with somebody because they're like, what you said? What you said?
Correct. Or you're not trying to send a whole paragraph. Right. So you shorten it. And they're like, hold on, are you okay this morning? Like, yeah. I'm fine. I'm great this morning. What's going on? Well, the message that you sent, it's like, man, that's why I told you to please give me a call. Right. And I'm like that to this day. I like hearing your voice. Once I got on the live, I can already tell that you woke up, you're feeling good, your energy's up, and all of that other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you was like, what's up, Maybach? Now I know, okay, she's lagging today. Might be a little fatigued, didn't get the bed rest. You know what I mean? Like hearing somebody's voice, you can determine a lot of things compared to just sitting there texting. To me, texting was invented or created. Okay, Foxy, listen, the movie's about to start. It's about to start. Let's go. I'm outside. Yes, it's for short conversations. Nothing, hey, good afternoon, grand rising, stuff like that.
People put like paragraphs, and I'm like, whoa, I can't, and with me, I'm really the one word K, yeah, and my kids are like, or even my husband's like, well, because we understand that language, but for the average other person is like, well, you're kind of dry. What is okay mean? I'm
just like, trying to keep it short, sweet, and simple.
Right. I don't have time to write, a dear Abby to you in a text message. And if I'm mad, it's the words are gonna look crazy because I'm jumbling the letters back. I'm dyslexic when I'm mad trying to type to somebody.
Yeah, I know. I feel you because the fingers just trying to catch up to the brain and what you're thinking. You know what I mean?
I'm spelling Y-W-A-Y with a capital Y and maybe an E at the end. Like, oh.
See, people be hating me because I'm actually spelling words, and I'm like, listen. That's why I got a lot of certificates in English and grammar. Yeah. I'm going to speak proper. I don't have time. Like somebody hit me up the other day. You guys might laugh. They hit me with the WYD, and I'm like, weird. What is this? And it was like, what do you mean? You really don't know what that is? Maybe I'm like, listen, I'm really not, I'm in tune, but I'm not really in tune. And it was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, I felt like an idiot. But at the same time, I'm like, you couldn't just write that out? You know what I'm saying? Just spell that. You told me you're not doing anything. So you could have just wrote, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, I've gotten into that. And that's the kids. That's that millennial lingo. So I'll be like, I didn't listen. My grandmother, before she transitioned, she was 91 when she transitioned. She was text messaging and she put the LOL with the smiley face. And I'm like, wait a minute. How does she know this? Like it baffled me. It was so cute at the same time. And I'm just like, what? So yeah, it really, like you said, the text messaging was designed to make something, a question, something simple right away, but not to put out a thesis, it's and divulge your whole life story in this text message.
Not for a whole argument, and stuff like that.
And shout out to Catholic school, because as much as they are twisted, I too went to Catholic school from the 1st grade to the 9th grade. And the only reason why it was up until the 9th grade was because I got pregnant. And Catholic schools, you have to have a certain marking grade to stay in their schools.
Correct.
And that's like 85 and above.
Yep, correct.
Summer school wasn't working for me, and I just couldn't hack it because at the time, like I said, I got pregnant in the 9th grade, so I was like tired, emotional, and I was just out of whack. But parents have to pay for that. That's no drop in the bucket. That's money that these parents are paying. So they did teach us vocabulary, phonics, spelling.
Correct.
I got penmanship awards. I didn't get the English.
Same here. Listen, Foxy, I'm still writing in cursive, which is a lost art right now.
Yes.
It's a lost art. And what I don't get is, kids should know how to write in cursive, because when we sign our name, not everything that we put our name on a piece of paper, you have to print. They might, I know some things it's just you write in cursive, you sign your signature, and some papers you have to put it in cursive and they make you print it so they can read your name out. You know what I mean? Because some people are writing chicken scratch.
I write the signature, and I used to perfect it because that's what we did in Catholic school. You had to perfect your penmanship, and then you would be awarded for your penmanship. So now I just am lazy with it, and then I don't want anybody to really know my name, so I just kind of like scribble. And I'm the one that you got to put the print name as well, because it's just like.
No, but that's what they taught us. I signed my name. I could sign my name like 100 ways, different ways in cursive.
Right.
That's just so somebody don't try to sign my name on anything, and I can look at it from the rip and be like, nope, just the way this person did their M's, that's not me.
Right. That's the name of the game. You know it. Correct. So really quickly, I want to shout out my big cat came through. Bonnet is in the building. So salute. I have Maybach up here, and we're just chopping it up because as you're coming in and you see the title, it is Mindful Monday, and so I was able to make it to Mindful Monday. But there was an article in the New York Post, so I'm just recapping a little bit for those who are coming in Maybach. There was an article on May 7th of a millennials wanting to have wives, housewives of the 1950s. I read the article a little bit, but you guys can go back to the New York Times. Not New York Times, the New York Post. New York Post was always one of the bootleg of the newspapers. It was the first, but we had the Daily News, and then of course the New York Times is the prestigious news company. But New York Post kind of can get a little gimmicky and a little gossipy. And that's where I got that article as far as this melanated man was saying that, should the melanated woman be really going out there looking for the, as you call, the clear man? Mm-hmm. So that's where the New York Post comes from, that kind of angle. And this article, again, is kind of like that, where it was mostly geared towards white or Caucasian millennial men. Millennials, as we know, is 1980 to 1995. It could be pushed a little further back, depending on how they're wanting to push the years back, whatever. And so I was bringing up, for the melanated man back in the 1950s. The way that was looking, there wasn't really this pushback of the housewife saying, oh, I need to get out there and work too. If she did, she did. My great grandparents did. My great grandmother worked. But this emphasis or this kind of bringing up this, let's have the housewives at home. I think that was coming out of the whole pandemic, where people were at home and now they were feeling, we're home, this feels good. But how does that look economically? And definitely, how does that look economically for the melanated person, Hispanic and other? But so I'm asking Maybach just, for some feedback, because he also is a parent. He's not in the millennial group, but, we have to have this healthy dialogue, and especially a male and female perspective of it, where it's not just being, because in the article, it was two white women that were, one was divorcing her husband because he wasn't home cleaning up and doing the chores, as she was a full-time worker and a full-time parent, and then coming home and having to cook, clean, and so forth. So after some odd years, I don't know how long they were married for, she ended up getting a divorce in 2018, and now she's got her own business. She's a New York Times bestseller. Her kids, she said, are happier for it. She's happy. It's at your own discretion, right? It's, if it works for you, it works for you. And I had to kind of reflect on the word luxury. Is it a luxury for a mother or father to stay at home as opposed to a privilege? So Maybach and I are just shooting the rim shots, and I don't know if I can.
I'm gonna jump off because I had got a call and the sound is very low, and I'm gonna jump right back on because I wanted to ask you a question about an article. If anybody in the chat seen this article, I'm gonna come right back on.
All right, so let me. I'm gonna have you drop down, and if anybody, because I'm not sure if I can do one or more, but I'm gonna just hit me back up, Maybach.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm gonna drop the link if anybody is interested to chime in. Feminine, masculine feedback is fine. This is not